I am pumped up about our next guest. He just got back from a vacation in Europe, and he's kind enough to join us here on the Michael K. Show. It's Mike Greenberg, the host of Get Up. Greeny, thanks so much for a few minutes today. Thanks for popping on.
Hey, it is my pleasure. How are you?
I'm good, Greeny. I mean, maybe not as good as you. How was the vacation?
It was lovely. It was nice to get a little time off. This is always the time of year that we get away because Wimbledon preempts the TV show for 2 weeks. So it's a nice little break, and certainly coming on the heels of the Knicks run, it was ridiculous. And I can tell you, I spend a lot of time in Europe in the summers, and usually you see a lot of Lakers stuff, and you see a lot of Yankee hats. I saw a lot of Knicks hats and a lot of Knicks jerseys everywhere I went. So that was a lot of fun. The Knicks thing really made this a special little spring into summer, and I think there's still some residual good feeling.
I think you're right about that. And, you know, people associate you, I think, the most with the Jets, but you're also a huge Knicks fan. I've seen you at plenty of the games the last few years. What did this Knicks title mean to you, seeing them win for the first time in 53 years?
It's like hard to put into words. You know, I've thought a lot about it because, as you say, the Jets and the Knicks have been my two teams all of my life. So I'd never seen either of them win. I was 5 years old when the Knicks won in 73. I was 1 year old when the Jets won in January of 69. So I didn't have any conscious memory of either of the teams winning. So I really didn't know what to expect it to feel like. And the first day when I woke up the next morning after they won, it was almost a little bit of an empty feeling. It was sort of like, and now what? Like, there's no more games. There's no more. But then as time went on and the celebrations kept going, and just it sort of left me with sort of, I worked in Chicago for years when the Bulls won. You know, when I was there covering the Bulls, they won 3 of their 6 titles. And I remember it would just sort of leave this sort of residual good feeling on the community, for lack of a better way of putting it. And that's sort of the way I feel like this has gone. Everywhere I go, people still talk about it. People are still excited about it. I still get excited when every time my algorithm certainly knows what I want to see. So, like, you know, the OG Anunoby play comes up constantly, and Rick Brunson and Jalen Brunson sharing that embrace on the floor after Game 5 and everything else. So it's just sort of a residual warm glow that I've never really known before, and I have a feeling is going to last.
Do you ever think, or have you thought during this run that the Knicks went on and everything since, as you alluded to there, what it would be like if your football team, the Jets, of course, if they won? Because as big of a Knicks fan as I am, the Jets are by far my number one, as you know. And I can't even imagine what it would feel like if, like, the team I am the biggest fan of actually won a Super Bowl. What would that be like for you?
No, bigger. Yes, the Jets would be bigger. In my childhood, I loved the Knicks every bit as much as I did the Jets. But when I moved away, especially when I started covering the Bulls, and then when we came back here and my son was born, and my son is a crazy sports fan, and basketball was always his sport, the Knicks were so bad as to be just almost impossible for a kid his age to latch onto. So my son is part of that generation of young sports fans who have attached themselves to basketball players rather than teams. So he roots for Steph Curry, so he roots for the Warriors, and he would have rooted for the Knicks against them, but he got into it. But the depth of my feeling for it has never been the same. The Jets will always be first and foremost. And I can tell you, I have enjoyed listening to your podcast on my drive back from golf last fall during the season. I would listen a lot of times because I used to listen to a lot of like political talk, on podcasts and stuff, and it has just become impossible. It's so depressing that it's impossible it doesn't pass the time in a nice way. So I found your podcast and I would listen to it a lot, and I really enjoyed it. And I agreed, candidly, I found myself agreeing with a lot of your perspectives last year. I was very down on the coach, and I know you got a lot of flack for that, but I thought you were absolutely right and everything. So as we usually are in the summer, I am a little bit hopeful. I think the Jets were not nearly as bad from a talent perspective as their performance was a year ago. And I hope with more adequate offensive coaching from Frank Reich and more adequate defensive coaching from Glenn himself, and a team that doesn't give up halfway through the season, which is, you could debate whether that was the right or wrong thing to do, I'm hopeful the Jets will take a significant step forward this year. But to answer your initial question, what would I do? What will I do someday when the Jets win the Super Bowl? I would love to be able to tell you. It will be different. It will definitely be different for me than this was.
Well, one, I appreciate the kind words about the podcast. And two, I mean, think about what you said, though. You used to listen to political talk stuff, but it was so depressing. You started listening to a podcast about the Jets, who haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, and that was somehow more uplifting.
That's just how depressing the state of things are in politics. No, by politics, I just mean like general interest stuff.
Yep.
Sometimes my brain just wants to get a little bit away from sports because it feels like work. And having done this now for 34 years, but the Jets, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was scrolling through. I actually just searched one day Jets podcasts, and I found yours, and I liked it, and so I probably listened 2-3 days a week before the golf season ended. That's really the only time I'm in a car anymore. Since I moved to the city. I used to listen. So Michael Kay, and when he was on with Don for all those years, I used to listen every day because I lived in Westport, Connecticut. That's where we raised our kids. And that's where we lived for 21 years. So there, you're in a car every single day. I live in the city now, so I'm almost never in a car, except when I'm driving out to Jersey to play golf. So that's when I would listen, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope that the conversation is a little more cheerful as this season gets going.
No doubt. And look, you mentioned Aaron Glenn. I think we're Jet fans. We want to see him turn it around. But year one, 3 wins, and now he's taken over the play calling defensively. And he wasn't exactly great, as you know, in game with challenges and timeouts and the team being ready to play. Are you concerned that it could be maybe too much for him to both be defensive coordinator and still have the responsibilities of being the head coach?
I'm concerned about so many things that that I guess would go on the list. But here's what I've made up my mind I'm going to do is I'm going to be optimistic. My friend Scott Van Pelt once said, and it's an expression that I like, I'm going to be optimistic because it costs the same as being pessimistic, and it's more fun. I'm going to root for the best. I'm going to say that Aaron Glenn should be able to coach the defense well. And I'm going to say that Frank Reich, you've got as good a shot as anyone of coaching the offense well. Now, there's been a bunch of nonsense. That's too benign a term. There's been several concerning episodes involving Geno Smith of late. I hope that everything turns out to be okay and that he is able to provide what I believe when they signed him, I thought he was capable of providing, which is competent, average NFL quarterback play. Because frankly, the Jets haven't had even that in a very long time. And I think they have, especially with some of the acquisitions they made during this offseason. I'm a huge fan of the tight end. I thought he would go much higher than he did. I thought that the Omar Cooper pick at the end of the first round was a steal. It's actually who I wanted them to take. Was it 16 that the Jets were picking? Whatever number it was in the middle of the first round. That's who I wanted the Jets to take. And then all of a sudden they wind up stealing him at the end of the round. So I thought the Jets had a very good draft with a chance for that to be really. The offensive line had damn well better be good with all of the high picks that we have there. I think the offense has a chance to get much better. It should get much better relatively quickly. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here telling you I believe the Jets are a threat to win the division. I think the Patriots remain good. I think the Bills will reestablish themselves as the team to beat in the East. I think Miami is a wash this year. They're going to be maybe the worst team in the league. But I think that the Jets have a chance to take a major step forward, like 6-7 wins and look competitive in 15 out of 17 games. If you get that, then that feels like a real step in the right direction. Then you figure out what your quarterback situation is going to look like in 27 in the draft that is going to be absolutely loaded with quarterbacks, or you find a veteran that shakes loose somewhere that you believe in. And so this is the best case scenario for the Jet fan. And this is what I'm hoping that we are looking at in the next, whatever it is, 6-7 months. And I think there is a legitimate chance of it happening. I'm not telling you I would bet my life savings on it, but I think there is a legitimate chance of it happening.
Mike Greenberg, of course, you watch him every morning on Get Up on ESPN. Also, he's part of ESPN's draft coverage, and I'm glad you brought up the Jets' most recent draft class because I actually have some confidence in the general manager, Darren Muji, and I love the fact they have the 3 first-round picks this year. I thought he was brilliant to get the better of the 2-1s from Dallas or Green Bay in the Quinnen Williams trade. I feel good about him, and I feel good about like the Jets having $100 million in cap space next year. Some of the players currently on the team. I feel like there could be a real scenario, Greeny. You tell me if you agree, where maybe it's Darren Muji who's picking the next coach, and he gets the draft as quarterback. If Aaron Glenn can't prove he deserves a third year, because the Jet job might be an attractive job a year from now.
Maybe. And I think the best argument for not making a coaching change last year, well, the two best arguments, and I heard you debating this like crazy, because there were moments in time last season when I felt like, you know what, I've seen everything I need to see. This guy's never going to be the coach that we want him to be. I think there were two very good reasons not to do it. One of them is it would have been the least desirable job ever, because if there's one thing that anyone with options is not going to do, it's go work for Woody Johnson after he has fired a coach after giving him only 1 year. So those two factors alone, both of those two, what made it the right thing to do not to make that move. Look, I'm inclined to root for Aaron Glenn. Those of us who have been critical of him, people act as though we have some axe to grind. I loved Aaron Glenn as a player. I'm absolutely more inclined to root for him than anyone else that we might have hired to be the coach, because he is a beloved former player. So I'm not even thinking that way. I'm thinking that the Jets do take a step forward, and he does look like he is much more ready for the job in year 2, and things start to go very well. My concern, to go back to where you began, with the outstanding draft, was I was also the host the night that the Jets took Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and Jermaine Johnson and Breece Hall in the first 30, whatever it was, picks. And I walked away from that thinking, wow, we have a general manager who really knows what he's doing and manipulated the board really well. And we've got, the makings of the foundation of a really good team. And of course, Sauce is gone. Now we got 2-1s for him. So that worked out well. Garrett, I think, under the right circumstances, has a chance to be a top 5 receiver. I genuinely believe from a talent standpoint, he has the potential to be a top 5 receiver in the league. Jermaine Johnson is gone. And Breece Hall, I'm glad that he got some money because he deserves it and he's a really good player. Anyway, the point I'm making is that's what I was thinking 4 years ago, and we all saw what it netted us. So I really, really hope that this seemingly outstanding draft haul turns out a lot better than that one did.
Mike Greenberg's our guest here, talking all things Jets. And I got to ask you about the Giants as well, because they bring in a big-name coach in John Harbaugh. What are reasonable expectations now for Harbaugh in year 1 and Jackson Dart, of course, now in year 2?
So I'm a huge fan of Jackson Dart. I'll start by saying this for anyone listening who doesn't know me. I'm not a Jet fan who dislikes the Giants. I never, ever, my whole childhood, I never considered the Giants a rival. There was no rivalry in those days, and there still isn't, obviously. But to me, the Jets' rival when I was growing up in the 70s was the Dolphins, and now obviously it became the Patriots. So I tend to root for the Giants as opposed to against them. And I think Dart has a chance to be tremendous. I think Dart has every it factor. The comparison I've been making on TV a little bit has been if I'm a Giant fan, what I'm really worried about is that he's Jim McMahon. I covered the Bears in the 80s. And Jim McMahon was a player everybody loved because he played like a linebacker. He was more like he had a mentality more like a linebacker than he did like a quarterback. And the sport was very different then, much more violent. And McMahon got hurt all the time because he was throwing blocks and all sorts of things that seemed delightful and exciting until what should have been a Hall of Fame career basically turned into 3 or 4 really good years. And then he was always hurt. So Dart needs not to do that. John Harbaugh needs to convince him that no matter how tough he thinks he is and no matter how much this has gotten him where he is, and you don't want to dim any of his enthusiasm or spark, the most important thing is that he is standing upright for 17 games. If he can do that, I think he has everything that it could take to turn out to be an excellent quarterback. If Malik Neighbors is healthy, Scadaboo is obviously a fun and good player. That offensive line actually has pieces to get better. I think that the Giants were a team. What was the stat? I had it in my head during the draft and forget what it was. They had 4 games that they led by double digits in the fourth quarter and lost, something like that, some unprecedented number of ridiculous fourth quarter losses. If we just turn those around with adequate in-game coaching like you should get from John Harbaugh, then I think you're a fringe playoff team just like that. if you get a couple of breaks go your way, I could see the Giants being a fringe playoff team this year. I could see them winning 7, 8, maybe 9 games, which puts you in the conversation. And I think they are a team headed in the right direction. They've got the one thing the Jets don't have, and that is, I believe they've got the quarterback to build around, and that's the thing that we need more than anything else.
Totally agree. Last one for me, Greeny, and I'll let you run. I come from a generation growing up that would flip on ESPN2 every morning and watch you and Mike Golick do a radio show, and I don't know if I'm sitting in the seat I'm in right now if I didn't grow up listening to you guys. What did it mean to you to see Mike Golick being brought back to the ESPN radio national lineup?
It's great. I think it's terrific. And the fact that he's working with Mikey, Mikey is now in his late 30s, but when I met him, he was 9. I said to him when it was announced that he was coming back, I said to him, "You're the most important person in the history of the radio network," because he was there before I got there and he was there after I left. So it only makes sense. So I think it's great. I think it will be great to hear him, and for him and his son Mike to be together is perfect. If you know Mike Golick, you know there's no one who is more family oriented there's no one. You don't know anyone who did it right being a dad anymore than Mike did, and continues to. So the fact that he's working with Mike Jr. is great. And I think ESPN is where they've always belonged. So I think it's great that he's coming back.
The Jake Asman Show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks right now. If you're a sports fan, they have something for everyone, especially if you're one of my listeners and you're gearing up for the upcoming Jets season. For player picks on PrizePicks, you just pick a player you like and you go more or less on a few of their stats. Check out some of the numbers they have for some of your favorite Jet players: Geno Smith, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Omar Cooper Jr., Kenyon Sadiq, and many more. PrizePicks should be your go-to, and check out their new offer right now. Play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you need to do is sign up and use that code HMA. That's PrizePicks code HMA. Download the app now or click the link in the description to download the PrizePicks app today. Mike, really appreciate your time. Hope you have a great rest of your summer, and hopefully it's a better season for the Jets. So if you're listening to the show on podcast or YouTube, you actually get a happy Jake Asman reacting to a Jets game for once.
With the Asmaniacs and all of that stuff that you guys have, and you're always, I don't even understand what the contesting is that you're doing, but you're like, there's something that one can obviously do to participate in the program that I'm not aware of how to do because I'm technologically incompetent. I'm 58 years old. My daughter was trying to blur the background on the screen that I'm in here talking to you on right now and couldn't do it. The reason that I'm sitting in front of what looks like a backstage at a Broadway play, all these hanging bags are behind me like we've got like a theater closet behind us, is because my daughter moved in with us for the summer because her lease expired and she's going to law school in the fall. So my wife had to take all of the clothing that she keeps in my daughter's closet out of there. And we have it hanging on a rack in my bedroom through the summer to be returned to her closet when Nikki goes to law school next month. So that's why I'm sitting in front of you. So the point that I'm trying to make is, whatever it is you're saying to do, hit a line, come to a thing, whatever it is you can do to win something. I wouldn't know how to do it even if I could, and I can't because I'm driving the car while I'm listening anyway. But one way or another, I do enjoy the show, and I hope that I've heard you very mad, which I have supported greatly. I'm hoping to hear you a lot happier this year, and I'm hoping to be happier myself.
I appreciate that a lot. Greeny, you're the best. Thanks so much for coming on.
All right, man. Take care.